Hi everybody, it's Phil Kerner, the Tool and Die Guy, and as I predicted when I released the video on building a machining fixture, there are some questions, and that's good. Covered a lot of ground in that video, and of course we're talking about this fixture that we went over last night. So, a lot of questions about these inserts or plugs, whatever you want to call them, why we went with the D-shaped hole. So, I copied some of your questions, and let's see what I can do to answer them, okay? So, what other way could you stop the plugs from spinning? I'm not that experienced in seeing a lot of other methods. Everything looks concentric. Could you just make everything round and do a tighter interference, or just eat the cost and machine it from solid? Interesting. Okay. Yes. I've done this before where I've machined everything from solid, meaning I would start off with this is an inch and an eighth plate. These are sticking up, gosh, I can't remember now, about 300 thousandths. So start off with an inch and a half plate and walk around and leave these all standing in the solid. And that could be done, all right? The reality is I could get it pretty close. I'm pretty good at milling, but it wouldn't be as flat as this, all right? I could probably get this whole plate 10 inches long and within a couple thousandths, but it wouldn't be perfect. This is much flatter, okay? When I was done, I indicated all these in. They're all perfect, all right, on this surface plate. So that is an option. I've done it before, but if there's a problem, if something happens to one of these plugs, you're done, right? You have to weld it or something. So I think the inserted way was a good way to go. Let's go back to the question. Make a tighter interference. Pretty tight to start with. I get what he's saying. Let's eliminate the D-shape hole and just pound these things in, and that's it. Yeah, that's not a bad decision. The powers that be wanted to make sure they wouldn't spin, so they wanted the D-shape. That's the way that one goes. All right. Let's see. Did I miss anything else? So that's the answer to that question, the best of my ability. A question on the design, not your execution. Is the part being pulled down onto the head of the insert or onto the base plate? If it's the base plate, what keeps the plug from being drawn out by the clamp screw? That's a good question. Better option in that case is to slip fit the plugs and hold them in place with screws from the bottom. If the plugs are the wear item, would hardening and grinding make them last longer? Let's address the last question first. If the plugs are the wear item. Listen, I don't work in a production shop. I work in a machine shop. A big order for us is 1,000 parts. Usually we do 5 or 10 of something, okay? So we don't like to spend a lot of money, and rightfully so, on hardening things, okay, for 20 parts. You know, a lot of times customers give us a job and they just want us to run 20, 30, 40 parts, and we might never see that customer again. So that's the reason. The material these are made out of, I'm sure we could flame harden them somehow if we ever wanted to, if we get an order for 1,000,000 pieces. So that addresses that. Let's see. The other question was about what he's trying to ask. He's curious. What keeps the plug from being drawn out by the clamp screw? Well, let's look at this section view. What this doesn't show, because I didn't get a really good drawing from these guys, at the bottom of this pocket, there is a 1/4 inch clearance hole. So they'll never be able to screw this screw in to hold the part in and jack this out. All right, that's a great question. But yeah, this section view is missing. This section view is missing the clearance hole that goes through the plate. So no matter what length screw they put in here, they'll never be able to hit the bottom and jack these out. But that is an excellent question. Is there anything else? Let's see here. The pin diameter. Okay, this is a different question. On the pin and diameter, it seems counterintuitive to use a finer grit wheel on tiny diameters. Well, we're going to really get into that. Smaller parts quickly heat up. You're correct. No significant mass to dissipate the heat. Correct. A cooler cutting wheel with a larger grit would seem to be the ideal choice. I agree with you. Removing the delicate pins with damage looks to be a pain unless the hole goes all the way through. Well, I did not show that on the first drawing because I just used a quick sketch. Back to this. I did count the pilot drill for this reamed hole, this 1/8 inch pin. The pilot drill did go all the way through. Whenever I can, possibly, I always try to drill the pilot drill all the way through. So if there is an issue down the road, which there just might be with these tiny pins, we can pound them back out and put new ones in. So good question, but that was taken care of. It just didn't show up in the little rough sketch I did when I was calculating how deep to ream it. But yes, I did drill those all the way through, okay? All right, now, regarding the flats and the inserts, why do they all need to be indicated in? Because I wanted them perfect to control that 1/1000th press fit. That was my deal. Not take a rough cut, measure it, and machine off the difference. Because I got two choices: take a rough cut, right, and then measure it and take a finish cut, or just indicate each one in, and they'll all come out right, and they all did. So, good question. Now let's go back to this finer grit wheel. So I recorded a little video for you guys about grinding wheel grits and why I chose the one I did. So let's see how that works out. All right, regarding my grinding wheel choice, a lot to talk about there, and that's a whole other video. So I'm going to give you some inside scoop on grinding wheels right now. Most of us that grew up in the trade, we got used to these various Norton carborundum wheels, and every shop back then, we had our standards, all right? Unless you're trying to grind something, Inconel or something, but for your standard tool room materials, we all had a selection of these wheels, and I'm not going to get into all the what every number on these wheels means, but we're going to talk briefly about the grit size. All right, so these are just 3 grinding wheels I just grabbed from work to do this in. This old book I've had for 45 years, How to Select the Right Grinding Wheel. I scanned it in, and it's going to be available under the link, on a link under this video. All right, Herman Sachet. Don't ever call him Herman Sachez. Great tool maker and Anson Tools and Gauges. Very, very precise guy. But anyways, here's what I'm going to show you about these grinding wheels. Why I chose the 80 grit to do the work I was working on. So if you listen carefully, this is a 46 grit wheel. Very open grain. Great for grinding plates flat, removing a lot of stock. But you can hear it. I hope you can hear that. Okay, then we go to a 60 grit. A little finer. I hope you can hear that. And then we go to the 80 grit. Very fine. So the reality is, I love what the one fellow said in this question. It seems counterintuitive on a small pin not to use a 46 to reduce the heat, but the reality is the grain structure is so rough. It on a small pin, it starts grabbing the pin. The wheel structure is so rough, and you'll see that in one of the slides. That intuitively, I knew, just from, not because I know these numbers by heart, just all the grinding I've done for so many years, to grab the 80 grit, and it was the right decision. It worked really well. So that's why I'm going to throw in this booklet that was done in, it's another lesson in itself. I get carried away here. 1956. I always try to teach my apprentices and our engineering guys that your forefathers did a really beautiful job in this trade. They figured out most of this stuff by 1940, and so this apparently was a movie at one time. You can see they got the film here. There's some blank pages to take notes, I guess, but I can't. I don't have the movie, but this is just from experience, so you're gonna have to trust me. I knew when I had to grind that pin down that small, I needed a fine grit. And I guess the only analogy I could make for you would be that if you're going to sand something wood, right? Let's just say this little dowel pin I have here, and I just want to maybe
just sand a corner on this, make it look a little neater. I don't know, 45-degree angle. I wouldn't grab a piece of 40 grit paper, right? It's small. I'm going to grab a piece of 100, 120 because of the size of it. It's proportionate. Does that make sense? Hope it does. Um, so when you're doing fine, intricate work, sometimes you need to go to fine, intricate wheel grades. For general purpose, I'm going to grind that plate flat. I'm going to rough some stuff out. 46 would work all day. For finer details like radii and forms, 60 usually will hold that radii better. I hope that makes sense. Again, very loose grain, a little tighter, much tighter. And then next up would be a 100 grit. And that's usually for just getting a dead sharp corner or doing some very fine work. But that would be a little tight because then I could have really burned that pin. So that's my theory. You'll get the book to test it out on yourself. I expect you guys to get back to me immediately that you've memorized it, and there will be a test.
All right. Hope you found that somewhat informative. I couldn't hear it because it's recording, but I listened to it once already. I thought it was amazing. Uh, next question. I would understand if someone was concerned with those plugs might work themselves loose if a 250-pound gorilla cranks those screws in there. But on the other side, you have these small 30,000s locators, so whoever uses this fixture needs to be very careful anyway. There's certainly easier ways to stop these things from spinning than D-shaped holes. I have never seen something like this in a precision application, and I'm impressed by Mr. Kerner for pulling this off. Well, I appreciate that. You don't have to call me Mr. Kerner. You can call me Mr. Phil Kerner. Several different ways we could have done that. You know, you could have eliminated this whole thing, just made this one solid plug at this outside diameter, slip fit it in, and probably put a dowel pin and 2 bolts. But then it adds up work, right? Every one of these things would have needed a dowel pin put in it right here, and every one of these things would have needed a tapped hole put in it here and here, and then we have to take the plate and drill a counterbore for socketed cap screws. So in the end, it's probably a horse apiece. Seriously, the D-shaped, it was a project, and it wasn't the worst way to do it. That's in the end. It wasn't a total waste of time, in my opinion. It was just something different, right? All right, what do we have here? Would you ever do something like heating the plate up so the pucks inserts slide in easier? What would be the considerations? You know, back in the day, when we were trying to get some press fits done on a mold, especially for some weird pin sizes, if they weren't kind of pounding in right, we'd throw the pins in the freezer for a couple hours so they'd shrink. Heating a whole plate up, you don't need to do that. Just do the right job on the fits, like I showed you in the first video, and you'll be fine. All right. How were the female D-shaped holes machined? On my Mazak, just programmed that shape. It was very easy to do. They were machined on a CNC machine, and I think it looks for it like a job for a more jig grinder, but you got it done with a CNC. I would like to know how you milled the flat in the D-shaped hole. It looks like a few bozo goofs on the Kurt Vise. Well, thank you for pointing that out. Let's see here. Yeah, you know, I didn't do that one. I might have done that one. I've done thousands of setups on this machine in the last 15 years, literally, not kidding. And sometimes you make a mistake. And I don't recall drilling this in. I think I knocked this off one time because sometimes I'm hanging on to parts by the skin of my teeth and stuff happens. And it's unfortunate. And I know it doesn't look good, but that's the price of hustling. And you'd like to not have those things happen, but appreciate your good eye. I'm not sure who that bozo is. I think one other comment said blame the apprentices. That's where I'm going with that. Okay, bozo, deep shit. Yeah, I think we got it done. All right, so that's it from here, I think. Yes. That's my follow-up. A lot of probably open up another can of worms with the grinding, but the reality is everything came out well. You can see there wasn't a lot of room to put tapped holes in this thing. Now, if this whole thing was this diameter, 1-inch 020, yeah, there's a little more room. But by the time you tap in 2 holes on each side and a dowel pin to keep it from spinning, I don't, it wasn't the end of the world to do it this way. It might have been harder for somebody else. And I mean this, with all due respect, for somebody else without my experience to do this fit maybe a little harder. But this is right up my alley. It was fun to do. So again, I'm Phil Kerner, the Tool and Die Guy. Please leave your polite comments below. Hope that answers some questions, and I will see you on the next video.